While Dr. Sorbier was quietly listening, he heard some stories about thefts and brave acts. He felt very upset about one thing in particular. He said, "I believe there's no worse thing than taking advantage of a girl's innocence, making her do bad things, and using her when she's feeling scared and confused. It's like when a little deer is scared, and her heart is beating fast. It's like when a girl's innocent heart leads her to do something she might regret later. She doesn't think about the bad things that might happen or about what comes next. The person who slowly and cruelly makes this happen, using their bad knowledge, and who can't stop themselves with strong words, who can't control their anger, and who gets too nervous when the girl is about to make a big mistake, is just as bad as someone who breaks a lock or a thief looking for an easy target. I won't forgive him even if there are some reasons why he acted that way. Even if he's flirting dangerously, trying hard not to cross the line, it's still not okay. Even if the roles are reversed and a girl is trying to tempt him, it's not an excuse. Some girls who seem to know everything about love are dangerous. We don't want our sons to meet them. It's really hard for a man's big ego, which we can call maleism, to resist a beautiful temptation. It's hard to behave like someone who always avoids trouble, or like a person who doesn't notice bad things. It's like when friends try to block out tempting things so they don't get distracted. It's also hard to resist sitting at a fancy table with delicious food and drink. But anyone would choose to control themselves if they thought about their mistake, its consequences, and how it would make them feel bad in the future. They would think about how it would ruin their peace and happiness. You might guess there's a story behind all this talk, and even though it's sad, I'm sure you'll find it interesting because of the bravery it shows. He stayed quiet for a bit, like he was organizing his memories. Then, leaning back in his comfy chair and looking off into the distance, he talked slowly, like a teacher explaining something to students in a hospital. He was the kind of guy our grandparents would say never met a mean woman. He was like a knight always looking for adventure, a bit of a troublemaker, but fearless. He loved having fun and had a charm that made people forgive even his wildest behavior. He spent all his money on gambling and pretty girls, so he became like a soldier without a home. He liked to enjoy himself however he could, and he was living in Versailles at the time. I knew him very well, right down to his childlike heart. He was easy to understand, and I loved him like an uncle loves a mischievous nephew. He would tell me all his tricks, pretending they were about a friend, not himself. I have to admit, his lively spirit and love life sometimes made me jealous. He was so happy to be alive that I didn't have the heart to warn him to be careful, like kids do in games. One day, after a long dance party where couples stayed together for hours, the guy finally understood what love really was. It was a powerful feeling that took over his heart and mind, making him feel proud and controlled by it. He fell deeply in love with a pretty girl who wasn't raised well and was sometimes difficult. She loved him too, but in a very intense and possessive way. Her parents didn't care much about her, and she had some mental struggles from her time at school. Even though she pretended to be someone else, She was determined to be with him, even if her rich parents didn't approve. He didn't have much money, but she didn't care. As time went on, he couldn't resist her love. He got softer and let himself be swept away by her strong feelings. They wrote crazy love letters to each other and met every day, sometimes by accident, sometimes at parties. They kissed, sealing their promise to love each other forever. The doctor stopped talking, and tears filled his eyes as he remembered those tough times. Then, in a rough voice, he continued, feeling horrified by what he was about to say. For months, he climbed over the garden wall, sneaking in like a thief breaking into a house. He'd hold his breath and listen for any noise. He'd enter through the servant's door, which she left open for him. He'd quietly walk down a long hallway and up a creaky staircase to her room on the second floor. He'd stay there for hours. One night, it was darker than usual, and he was hurrying not to be late. He accidentally knocked over something in the hallway. The girl's mom was still awake, either because she had a headache or was reading late. She heard the noise, got scared, and thought there were burglars. She screamed, waking up her husband and the servants. The guy realized what was happening. Instead of dishonoring his girlfriend, he decided to pretend he was a thief. He quickly grabbed valuable things from the room and hid behind the piano in the drawing room. The servants found him hiding behind the piano with candles, and they grabbed him, yelling at him. They took him to the police station, feeling ashamed and scared. At the trial, he acted clumsily on purpose. Even though he felt sad inside, he didn't show it. He was punished because he was an officer, but he didn't argue. He went to prison quietly like a criminal. He died there feeling miserable and bitter, with the name of the girl he loved on his lips. He gave his will to a priest, asking him to give it to me. In the will, he explained everything without mentioning names, finally clearing his name from the accusations he carried until his last breath. I always thought the girl got married and had lovely kids. She raised them strictly and with serious faith.